Welcome to a quick tutorial on how to prep and set up for your in-home interviews with Real News PR and Real News Communications Network. It's showtime. This is to make sure that you have the best quality produced content for your podcast show or your TV show, or perhaps you have an upcoming interview with a local media network. What you can expect from this tutorial is the very basics when it comes to conducting yourself professionally for on-camera content. And your producer with Real News Communications will handle the rest. Now, it's no surprise that there are so many unknown things that may be coming your way as you're just sitting down to do your broadcast. But never fear, I'm here to just give you a little bit of a heads up so you can prepare and make sure that these very simple challenges don't come your way and you can avoid them if at all cost and possible. Hello and welcome to a quick tutorial for an interview or a hosting broadcast with Real News Communications Network. My name is Sarah Crilly and I'm excited to take you through just a couple tips that I've learned as I found myself doing a few broadcasts through my in-home studio. And I wanted to put this together for you guys to make sure that your setup at home is simple, clean, functional, and you'll get the best content possible with us. Let's start with internet. The best case scenario is you have a direct connection, which is your Ethernet cable plugs right into your computer. Or depending on your Wi-Fi and internet speed, you'll have the freedom to use your laptop. So go ahead and run a speed check on your internet speed. I was able to use speedtest.net to ensure that I had fast Wi-Fi, but also to make sure that other people within your household, if you're streaming from home, are not using the internet that could possibly slow down yours, or also closing out any other devices that are using streaming, like your smart TVs and other areas in the home that are using some of that internet bandwidth. As we continue with our absolute essentials, you want to make sure that if your computer is not plugged in, you need to plug it in. If you're not using a desktop and you are relying on a laptop, plug it in. A lot of these streaming platforms and things that you'll be doing take a ton of battery. You will drain your battery way quicker than you are anticipating, I can assure you that. So plug it in, plug it in, plug it in, plug it in. Do not forget to plug in your laptop. Do not forget to have that extra charging for it. And without further ado, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's start with what is already deemed professional on broadcast television. Can you see the bookcase behind her and how well she's lit? These are perfect examples of what yours could look like, and it's simple for you to be able to achieve this at home. All right, so where are we going to start? Location, location, location. Location is key when you're doing your recording or your broadcast. Now I'm going to be in my home office because I have a door that closes. I have carpet on the floor, and so that actually is where I found that I have the best sound quality and I actually am removed from all distractions. Now I'm going to show you a few views within my home office to give you an idea of how to light your face best, some different corners within your office that aren't very distracting to give you the best quality product for your recording. So here I'll show you as a backdrop. This is actually very flat. Also standing's very hard to do for an interview. Possibly a seated position would be better. So I'm going to take my light source. It's just a lamp. It's a warm lamp that will warm the tone. I'm going to turn it over and then I'm going to go take a seat and see what we've got when I sit down. All right, so now I'm seated and you can see I do have a very busy background. I'm going to remove some of these areas because I just don't want to be too distracting for a broadcast. I want them to focus on me, the subject, if I'm a guest or a host. You never want to take away from your subject, but this does add a little bit more dynamic and liveliness versus just a flat backdrop with basically a piece of artwork. I'm also seated at the corner of the room, so that adds a little bit of depth, and I have a plant back there, a lot of greenery. Something that if we did want to keep with this setting, I could just move up a little bit closer so it takes away from my backdrop. Let's take a look at a couple real-world examples, shall we? I'm going to call this good, better, and best. Here's a perfect example of just a flat wall background, totally works, decent for television. Here's a similar example, but now he's at the corner of the room seated where we do have that depth. Now notice the floor. To make this shot better, he would have sat closer to the camera to minimize the appearance of the door and the floor. Now, out of our 3 examples, here's my favorite. We have a busy background, but it's not too distracting. It just really accentuates the look of the shot, and he's very well lit. He's got an angle of the room that's very appealing, and this is probably my favorite out of the 3 examples. Of course, we have the utmost respect for everybody who's taken their time to go on television. Again, these are all 3 great examples. They're all very well lit. It's just simply the positioning of themselves in the room that can always make just a little bit of a difference. One more thing to keep in mind if you're the host or the guest is your body position and distance from the camera, and also how symmetrical it looks if you are the same distance between the host and the guest through the view of the camera. Let's look at that example again. See how their headroom is about the same and their body position is just about the same distance from the camera? This is as symmetrical as it gets, so that's something to always shoot for when you're a host or a guest, to be able to match up with who you're also going to share the screen with. You always want to make sure that your shoulders are showing during your broadcast, and also, since I'm using the built-in camera and the built-in sound, I want to raise my laptop up so then it can pick up my voice, and also I can be eye level with the camera. Now let's bring these 3 back on camera. Notice their eyes. You want to make sure that you're looking straight into the camera and really try not to look away. I know it's hard to do. It'll take a little bit of practice, but out of the 3 examples, this gentleman also displayed very constant eye contact, which was noticeable and very helpful to be able to watch during interviews. So what if your webcam is actually at the bottom of the monitor? I know my husband's is, and it is the most unflattering up the nose shot if you can imagine the camera being down instead of up at almost eye level. I'm going to either advise you guys to get your own webcam that's separate that would sit on top. Otherwise, you're just going to have to raise your laptop all the way up, and so that way you don't have this. Yeah. It's just, it's not gonna be the best quality video. Almost unusable. I think that, if you can have that eye level, and you shouldn't have a problem from there. Now, I've found myself adjusting several times before I actually connect with my guest, or if I am the guest, I am waiting to connect with my host, but I play around with this continually right up until the moment, just to make sure that I've got a perfect clear view of myself, enough headroom, and all of those little fine details to make sure that I am very visible to the viewer and that my eyes are looking right into the viewfinder. Now, speaking of the viewfinder or the camera that you're looking into, let's talk about that for a second. If you're a guest, the majority of your interviews, it's not a problem to use your built-in camera as long as it is a high enough quality that you can see yourself and it's not a fuzzy image. So you may be wondering, okay, Sarah, I didn't realize this, but I am blurry, but I usually am not. Big deal for this is to make sure that your camera is clean. So you're just going to take a cloth and wipe that off. Physically take a cloth and wipe off that viewfinder, because more often times than not, it's pretty cloudy, and that can mess with the quality of your image. Let's take a closer look, shall we? You may not be able to see it, but there is fingerprints all over that screen. It definitely needs to be wiped off with a cloth, and that is what my built-in camera looks like. It's actually very streaky, and you may not know it from just looking at it, but to the side view, definitely a dirty camera that needs to be cleaned off with a little cloth. Here is another view of the same laptop, the same camera, but a little bit of a pixelated image, not as sharp. This is because I am clearly across the room from the light source. It's dark outside, it's evening, so you can see that there's a big quality shift if I am far from the light source. What happens if I get a little bit closer? And then I'm just going to move the light a little closer. And you can see that the image is sharper than it is if I am seated pretty far away from the light source. You also don't want it to be too close. See how you can see this light is now probably in my eyes, and I just kind of look like I'm in an interrogation video or something where I'm in trouble. Light is a very tricky thing to play around with, and that's just the thing. You're just going to have to keep adjusting it and doing some playback if you have a little bit of time to be able to mess around with this. But the most important part of this is that you have a clear view of you. And glasses wearers beware. That can definitely cause a big glare and a big problem in your videos. Another tip, you do want to have some light behind you, but see this effect? Ah, there's like some kind of a weird light shining. So that is a Edison bulb. I know that those are really popular right now. You may have them in your house or home office. Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. I do, so I actually would turn this guy off, or I would just go directly in front of it so it wouldn't be a problem. But you do want to have some lamps behind you with some shades on them, if you can see this behind me, and that way it will just illuminate you from all around. You really do want to have light all around you, so that will really brighten you, and you are creating this little in home, in studio office. So make the most of it. Brighten your face, and you'll have a great, great, great image. All right, Sarah, but what about if I want to use the great outdoors? It's not uncommon that I've had people say, well, I'm going to be a guest on a show and I'm actually going to be Skyping or Zooming in from my phone and I'm going to be outside. This is possible, but think about the birds chirping in the background and, cars driving and things that are outside, kids playing. Again, there's so many unknown elements of outside and actually inside too. So let's get right into what can happen to the great indoors also that perhaps you weren't actually planning on. It doesn't stop there. What about home deliveries and solicitors walking by? What is Daisy barking at anyway? These are all things that can happen of people coming to your house while you're in the middle of your creative broadcast, and that is just a problem. Well, I've got a solution for you guys. Ta-da! Make a homemade sign. The cheesier the better. Perhaps even your neighbors will be by later to ask for your autograph. I say you put it on the front of your door. Please refrain from knocking and ringing the doorbell, and all those home delivery problems and the people that are going to be coming by will leave you alone for peace and quiet. It's showtime. And I'm making sure that everything else is, well, there we go. That's one of my, don't forget that in the middle of your broadcast, you want to have your phone on silent. Loving. Really, I break this rule all the time, and this is something that is just so obvious. It's 101. Cell phone on silent, just have it nearby so you don't miss those important phone calls if you have to, or simply enjoy this quiet time without those cell phone distractions. They can wait. This is your moment. Thanks for watching this edition of an at-home broadcast tutorial with Sarah Crilly with Real News PR. Your producer will be reaching out to you shortly on if we'll be using Skype or Zoom for your interview.